Dear friends, welcome everyone. We continue with our second edition of Friends for Leadership Online Meetup, and today we are absolutely honored to have our great friend and the Secretary General and Special Advisor on UN75 and Digital Cooperation, Fabrizio Hochschild, as well as our great friend, Executive Director, and also of the UN Habitat, and also Under Secretary General of the United Nations, as well as the head of Nairobi office of the UN, Maimouna Mohsharif. Thank you so much for being with us and for finding time. My fellow speakers, Tamara from Serbia, Regine from Philippines, Simona from Bulgaria, Lucia from Uruguay, and David from Nigeria will also share their projects and initiatives as part of Friends of Cities community within the Friends for Leadership network. And just for us to set up the context for our conversation, I would love to give the floor to His Excellency Fabrizio Hochschild for the general introductory word about the UN75 and what we as young people passionate for implementing some solutions, changing our life to the better, can do right now during the crisis, and what do you anticipate will change after the crisis is over? Please, Fabrizio, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be with you all. And I'd like to greet especially colleagues from UN Habitat and the very distinguished Executive Director, Maimouna Sharif. I lead the marking of the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. And we're marking this 75th anniversary in the midst of the largest global health disaster that the world has faced in 100 years. Whether we overcome, how fast we overcome this crisis, and the extent to which we can actually eradicate the virus will depend on our individual behavior, will depend on our communities, will depend on what our countries do, but it will also, most critically, depend on international cooperation. And the degree to which international cooperation is functioning well or not so well is not so clear. The degree to which international cooperation will come out of this crisis weakened or strengthened is not so clear. So this crisis really puts in stark relief both the benefits of international cooperation and the threats where it doesn't work so well. COVID is an extreme disaster. When we were planning the 75th anniversary, and the Secretary General decided to launch a global conversation on where the world was heading and to gather views of we the peoples on their aspirations for the future and their fears and their expectations of international cooperation, we had no idea that COVID would come. It was clear there were many forms of slow onset pandemics that we were already facing. And I mean it in the metaphorical sense. Climate change is a major threat to us that could be just as deadly or more so if we don't address it better. We have demographic challenges that we've never had before. We have new technologies that bring huge benefits but also cause massive disruption, and if they're not properly managed, could be a new threat to our security, a new threat to our human rights, and could lead us with greater inequalities. And inequalities which are rising in 2 out of 3 countries is another problem of our times. And the last one I'll mention is protracted conflicts that are lasting longer and proving more and more difficult to solve. All these challenges can only be addressed through international cooperation, and the tragic paradox of our time is that there is less cooperation at a time when we need it most. And this is why we so much want to hear from we the peoples what they expect, what are their fears, what are their hopes, what do they want from international cooperation, so we can take those voices and use it to try and reinvigorate and make international cooperation work better, to deliver better, especially for young people. And among all the challenges that we're up against and that will determine the future, perhaps the one that is most clearly defined is urbanization. I mean, our colleagues from UN Habitat are, of course, the experts in this area, but this is a trend that is almost certain. We are now have about half the world living in cities. Within the next decade, that will go up to about 3/4 of the world living in cities. And urbanization, urban environments also bring together, in a very concentrated form, all other challenges. The vast majority of global emissions contributing to climate change come from cities. We will win or lose the battle against climate change by our behavior in cities. Inequalities are no more concentrated anywhere than in cities. Where I'm talking to you now, I'm sitting in the UN headquarters in Manhattan. Manhattan has the highest concentration in the world of super rich, but barely a kilometer away, just across the river in Brooklyn, there's a neighborhood called Brownsville where 40% of the people live in poverty. So within 2 kilometers, you have the richest people in the world, and not far off, people living, a large number of people, tens of thousands, living in poverty. Conflict, protracted conflict, is more and more an urban phenomenon. And of course, cities are also the site of the demographic changes that we're seeing, with youth bulges in many parts of the world, and in other parts of the world, an aging population that places ever greater demands on our social service systems. So cities, to function effectively, will also have to strengthen international networks, as they're doing so ably. I think New York is part of a network of cities that is working on COVID responses. And that sort of international cooperation is the only effective way we can tackle the challenges I'm talking about. But we very much need to hear from you about what you expect of international cooperation. So in conclusion, I would beg you to please go to our website, fill out our 1-minute survey, get all your friends to do the same so that we can bring your voices to the attention of heads of state who will be meeting here in New York on the 21st of September. And that will be a defining moment to plot the future of international cooperation. We want your voices to make sure that our work together in the future better responds to your hopes and better addresses your fears. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fabrizio. For those who just joined our stream, I would like to remind that this was the message from His Excellency Under-Secretary General and Special Advisor on UN75 preparations as well as digital cooperation. We understand that Mr. Hochschild will need to leave at some moment, and thank you so much for your participation. Let's hope that you will be able to stay with us at some more time. So right now, let me again introduce our next honorable guest, Her Excellency Maimouna Moghchereef, Executive Director of the UN Habitat and also Under-Secretary General of the United Nations. Your Excellency, thank you so much for being with us. In some past times, we had some wonderful conversations about how we can involve young people on municipal, on regional and cities level to be more engaged, to follow the new urban agenda, to work on the SDG 11. And how do you think this might change the activism of young people throughout these difficult times? What do you think is the forecast for rural-urban divide during the pandemic and after? And what is the message for young people which you would like to convey? Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I would like to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. And also good morning to my colleague, Mr. Fabrizio. Nice meeting you online. Yes, as a center of excellence on urban issues with portfolio in more than 60 countries worldwide, as mentioned by by my colleague, Mr. Fabio, UN Habitat's expertise covers a wide range of areas, including housing, participatory slum upgrading, youth and gender initiative, transport, water and sanitation, research and innovation, among others. Building on more than 40 years of experience in human settlement, particularly in humanitarian situation, UN Habitat is focusing on the cities and community level response, especially now in the COVID-19 crisis. We are proactively responding by leveraging our extensive network of civil society partners, urban NGOs, women, youth groups, as well as slum dwellers community organization. Just to give you some statistics, it's over 1,500 cities in 210 countries affected by COVID-19. In over 95% of cases in urban areas. 1 billion people live in informal settlements and slums in overcrowded and inadequate housing. And 2.4 billion people lack adequate access to safe water and sanitation. So UN Habitat has been working very closely with young people to support youth entrepreneurship. In the communities of Matare and Kenya, we have supported youth groups to do recycling and upcycling of plastic, which could then sell to make waste to wealth. This innovative mechanism not only raises money for the youth and their group, but also clean their community. We also focus on youth who live in cities and communities affected by conflicts. In Somalia, our Raju program just completed training of 500 young men and women in construction skill so they can rebuild their own home. Raju means hope in Somali, and what we see in youth, our hope for the future. We have used previously a similar model in Sri Lanka following the domestic conflict there. So far, assisted over 16,800 families to reconstruct and repair their homes through this program. Another example is in Colombia. Our Urban Peace Lab project trained over 500 young people and their youth groups in conflict resolution technique, combined with entrepreneurship and life skills. UN Habitat works closely with youth to implement community-driven solutions during this crisis. Again, nearby our office in Nairobi, UN Habitat and its partners, with the support of the youth group, have established 28 hand-washing facilities to do informal settlement, with another 15 planned. In other areas of the country, UN Habitat will install 40 new hand-washing situations in 15 informal settlements and train up to 20 youth groups to manage them. Additionally, UN Habitat is supporting youth groups to distribute face masks as well as providing hygiene, messaging and sanitizer to public transport users and producing data on informal settlement to share with the government. And what is our immediate response and the call? As an initial measures, UN Habitat mobilized internally $1.3 million as seed funding, a kick-off immediate responses to COVID-19 in 13 countries. Last week, we have launched the United Nations or UN Habitat COVID-19 response plan, calling for $72 million to help meet urgent needs in cities and communities in 64 countries. This response has three main focuses, namely to support the local government and community-driven solution. That's where the youth is coming in informal settlement. Second is to provide urban data evidence-based mapping, and knowledge for informed decision making. And the third is mitigate economic impact and initiate recovery. So the priorities in the COVID world, that looking at the long term, we are now immediate, and we also have to look at the long term. Looking at the long term, Untitled is committed to working with all of you to build back our cities and communities and make them more resilient and prosperous. We suggest focusing on 4 recovery priorities areas, which I already have set up the task force 3 weeks ago, that are essential for the functioning of cities in the recovery stage. One area that we are looking at is the rethinking the state, reorganizing local governance mechanism. Second, we are looking at addressing the increase of poverty and exacerbation of inequalities in cities. The third focus that we are looking now is the rethinking urban morphology and typologies, creating new evidence on density and compactness. And the fourth is reducing the risk of failure of the current urban economy business model. So I'm glad to elaborate further on these 4 priorities if the times permit. But anyway, Untitled has engaged hundreds of thousands of people through their diverse and innovative program, and will continue to do so during and after this crisis. We encourage all young people like all of you to stay safe, healthy, and take action. Let's work together to turn the word impossible to I am possible. I believe in you and believe that the collective action that you will help us to win this battle against the pandemic. Let the young people be the job creator, not the job seeker. Thank you very much to all of you, and thank you,
Your
having me
Excellency.
together with the young people. Because when I have together with the young people, I always feel young and energetic. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. We really love you're always so energetic and so open-minded, and thank you so much for the specific priorities which you have just mentioned. Your Excellency Fabrizio, how much time do you have with us? If you need to leave, maybe you have some follow-up statement to end your presence.
Thank you. I'm afraid I have to leave now. But I just wanted to wish you and your families well in these difficult times. And we're thinking of all of you from here in New York, and the very, very best wishes and virtual hugs to all of you, but especially to my colleague and dear friend, Maimouna Sharif, but also to you, dear Roman. So thank you all. Stay safe, stay well, and we're thinking of you.
Thank you so much, Fabrizio, and we have put the link to the UN75 1-minute survey to the description of the video. So please, all who are watching us now live, do find time and follow this link and let your voice be heard. And speaking about the voices being heard, let me then give the floor to our next speaker from Friends of Cities community, Regine Guevara, who will share the details of her project and maybe how you see cooperation of Friends of Cities with UN Habitat. Just mind the time. Hope to be fine in 3 minutes.
We are very excited to join forces with Friends of Cities. We think that this conversation is long overdue. It is about time for us to come together, set aside our politics, and focus on what's important. First, as human beings, we are given this peculiar chance to be more human to each other. I've had friends and even relatives who passed away this year, frontliners who continue to risk their lives. It begs us to answer the question, what can we do with our privilege? Second, as development and urbanization professionals, young and young at heart, we are compelled to act swiftly. I commend my fellow speakers who have taken upon themselves to act in their own localities, because truly it is in the local where SDGs are realized. Finally, to our friends at the UN, we expect no less than a horizontal platform for engagement. You know, leaving nobody behind starts at home. Thanks to Friends for Leadership for crafting this webinar, and as well as to UN75 and UN Habitat for continuing to believe in our generation that we have the agency to organize the processes that concern us ourselves. Allow me to use my remaining time to give my personal example back home. I come from a business family myself. Everything urban savvy, from space-saving homes to electric tricycles in the Philippines. Business has been very bad, and for our carpenters and drivers, they have been deeply compromised by this lockdown. For which we have raised drives for sure, but then again, the next question is, now what? What does the future hold for them? Meanwhile, having represented my region in various youth programs, I've observed young people putting together publication after publication about the 2030 agenda, so many interesting projects on the ground, one speech and campaign after another. But you know, not every young person will be elected into a position. And not every young person can survive as an activist or a volunteer. Maybe as an entrepreneur, because every young person can innovate. Recently, a few friends reached out to local government units to try to fill in the gap, from translating mental health modules to urban gardening at home, and soon financial literacy training that can enable daily wage earners to become alternative traders. I dare say the other way around. It takes a village to raise a city. This is what Barangay SDG or SDG Village Manila is all about. Young, innovative consultants partnering with urban planners to incubate locally driven social enterprises. To end, I want to let you know that I'm only talking about one city here. Every city takes pride in its own young people, and there are so many young people out there in the world who have brilliant ideas. This is what Friends of City is for me. It's not just about my project or any of the other speakers' projects. It's about all of us, an intergenerational conversation about sustained actions at the local level. Our dear friends, we might be at the brink of a global crisis, and it's the 75th anniversary of the UN. As they say, what a year to be alive. Quarantine asks of us to be more innovative, turning loss into opportunity. Let's work together that we who will inherit the cities we have may better understand the cities we need and shape together the cities we want. I look forward to the follow-up. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Virgin. And please, I would like to next give the floor to Tamara from Serbia. And Tamara, can you just briefly tell us about your cities-related work, but also what is no less important, your work during the COVID-19 time and your project which you have just launched. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Roman, Your Excellency, Ms. Sharif and Mr. Horchel, for this opportunity. In the beginning, I will say a few words regarding Smart City Southeast European Institute and the conference, which is established to promote enlarge network and cooperation between key players in the field of smart city technologies and solutions, as well as to represent trends and drivers regarding sustainable ways of living in the cities. One important part of smart cities is for sure smart healthcare system and smart hospitals, and especially we can see it today in pandemic outbreak situation, where more than 5% of COVID-19 infected population are healthcare workers. That's why a group of Serbian experts, doctors who are involved in international projects of slowing COVID-19 problems in hospitals in Milan, Rotterdam, Bern and Belgrade, have created system Doctors for Doctors with technical support of IT companies from Serbia. The system is created for continuously monitoring of the psychological conditions and working and living environment of the healthcare workers, as well for early recognition of COVID-19 infection symptoms. As a young expert in field of business development, I have joined the initiative from the first stage, and now we are developing our project with support of Ministry of Innovation and Technological Development of the Republic of Serbia. And I'm happy to share this information with you today, and our team is ready to help experts in other countries in implementation of such a system. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And let me further give the floor to Lucia, who will tell us about her projects with relation to cities. And also, as Tamara just shared her initiative during the COVID-19, Lucia, can you please let us know about your art projects which you have recently launched?
Good day to everyone. Your Excellency Maimouna Sharif, Executive Director for UN Habitat. Dear Friends for Leadership and viewers around the world, it's an honor to be here today with you. My name is Lucia Dallens, and I am the founder and director of Art Shapers, a cultural association that promotes emerging artists and creative entrepreneurs through urban spaces and art exhibitions based on the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. In this opportunity, we would like to share our project related to the sanitary emergency. From Art Shapers, we decided to launch an art contest called A Hug from Home, directed for children, with the aim to recognize and thank all the frontliners of this emergency that are risking their lives every day, and they are assuring the well-being of all our society. The winners of this contest will be announced in press. And the idea is to deliver a message of gratitude, but also to communicate empathy, love, and say that they're not alone. If not, we're all together in this. This project started in Uruguay, and it rapidly escalated to 2 other countries, which are Bolivia and El Salvador. And we are also looking to implement it to other places through our network of Friends for Leadership. On a second point, I would like to talk about the current project that we are planning to implement soon. It's related to the topic we are discussing today, sustainable cities and communities. So, because in Art Shapers, we believe art is a powerful instrument to bring people together and enhance lives. The project will be about producing artworks in tiles with persons with disabilities in order to create beautiful art murals, and also to produce material for urban public infrastructure. Clearly, we want to contribute to the development of sustainable communities by being inclusive and also by creating jobs for this population. And we are looking forward to work together to join forces with all the people that really believe in better communities and, of course, in a better world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucia. And for those who have just joined us, let me remind that this is our second edition of trying to connect young people's voice with the United Nations. And thankfully with us we have Her Excellency Executive Director of the UN Habitat and Under Secretary General Maimouna Sharif. And our representatives of the Friends of Cities community share their projects now. So I would like to give the floor to David Okpatuma from Nigeria, who will tell about his initiative, and maybe will also share some insights on the rural-urban divide, which he finds important. Please, David, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Roman.
Your Excellency Fabrizio Hochschild, Under Secretary General, Special Advisor on UN75, Your Excellency Dato Maimuna Modsharif, Under-Secretary General, Executive Director of UN Habitat. Good afternoon, dear friends, viewers. Friends Pro Earth is basically a network of social entrepreneurs and change makers who come together under the auspices of friendship to identify community needs and challenges and profile solutions that are people-centered, people-driven, and people-sustained. It is in the light of this and with the current realities as regards the pandemic of COVID-19 that Friends Pro Earth took the initiative to champion its community farm project, which has seen to the gap bridging between rural production and urban consumption, with the approach to ensure that the low-income earners do not bear the extra costs of transmission from the farms to the cities. It is in line with this that we understood that some of the farmers do not understand some of the tax reforms law that guides their trade and some of the benefits and pockets of incentives that they are actually entitled to. So what we're able to do is to engage these local farmers in tax law education and also to see how to bring a community-centered and owned production chain from production to processing to value addition to storage and even preservation. That way, everything can be done locally and the final consumers, who are actually low-income consumers majorly across the country, can actually have access to food without extra charges that actually they can't afford most of the times, especially this time that the economies of the world are not really as strong as it used to be. Also, we've been able to introduce the usage of smart technologies in this marketing. So we have an indigenously developed app called romfa.ng, and romfa.ng basically is an app that was developed and operates in Hausa, which is basically the language of everyday conversation of the local farmers or the grassroots rural producers of food, and even the consumers most of the times in northern Nigeria. So this app was created with the most easy modes of access and usage for even those who do not have any form of education. So it is in line with this that we came to the realization that Nigeria, though having about 85 million hectares of arable lands, only utilize about 25% of this size. Now, we are trying to see how to increase the hectarage of some of these farmers to ensure that they actually go beyond just subsistence farming to create farming systems and lives that will revolve around productions that meet both regional and national as well as international food needs, and then are able to set up trust funds that are going to cater for tuition for their children, health insurance for their families, and even mortgage. So this has been the engagement and efforts of Friends Pro Earth all this while. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. And last but not least, I would love to give the floor to our friend Simona Randeva from Bulgaria with her amazing project, which we had previously presented in Davos during Russia's House sessions. So Simona, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Roman. Your Excellency, it's a real honor for me to be part of this debate. My name is Simona and I'm the founder of Project Vertica. Over the past few months, there have been a lot of weaknesses and problems of our system that have become evident. And I believe that it's important that we focus on finding solutions which are not only easy and quick to implement, so that we can resolve the current issues, but also that they are able to put in place the infrastructure and the processes that are going to allow us to prevent such crises from happening in the future. Currently, there are many people which are isolated. There are actually entire communities which are isolated, and some of them are already finding it difficult to get access to fresh food. So now, all of a sudden, unlike just a couple of months ago, food security and food independence are becoming a key priority. There are actually a number of analyses circling around that predict that after the current economic halt, there is going to be a serious food crisis. So we believe that it's important that we find and focus on solutions that are going to help us prevent that or ease that as much as we can. And this is essentially what we're doing at Project Vertica. We are building sustainable urban farms which utilize unused spaces within the cities, whether that be abandoned buildings or underground parking lots, or essentially any space that can be utilized. And we are trying to partner with the local government and city officials to give us at least temporary access to these spaces, as well as with the Ministry of Education, actually, so that we can install such vertical gardens in schools, as we believe that this will make our city more self-sufficient and more resilient, not just in this crisis, but for the future. Because unlike rural areas, we don't have the land available to grow our own food, and many cities around the world share the same problems as we do. So we really believe that this is a very elegant way to resolve this, and these vertical farms are pretty easy to put together and can become operational quite quickly. It's a system that can be replicated in a lot of places around the world, as long as your local governments are supportive enough and motivated enough. I urge you to try and find solutions like this that can be easily implemented and it can resolve not just the current situation, but help us become more resilient in the future. And this is essentially really a long-term investment into building greener and healthier cities for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Simona. And Your Excellency, we have been monitoring the social media right now, and we have picked up a couple of questions. If we still have time to ask you, please. We have a question from Mariana, who asks, it is estimated that 1 billion people worldwide live in slum conditions. How is this situation going to be handled on a regional level? Your Excellency, if you may ask, I can address this question to you.
Yeah, from our studies that 1 billion people live in the informal settlement and slum, and also in overcrowded and inadequate housing. I think this is not only in, it's also a collaboration and the needs of the integrated approach from the national government, regional government, and also the local government. And I think there must be a political will if we need to reduce, maybe not too much to eradicate, but to reduce. One is that the existing slum, what shall we do when we talk about affordable housing? So the first thing is that we don't want to shift slum, but when we do the housing development in informal settlement, we have to include the slum dwellers integratedly. Not that taking the land and pushing them back and create another slum next to the proper housing, planned housing area. So this approach, I think, is not a simple approach, but we need to look into a very comprehensive and integrated at the national level, at the regional level, at the local level, at the community level. And we at UN75 are willing to work together. And I have the experience when I was a mayor in Malaysia and also in Penang. And through integrated planning, managed to reduce a lot of slum area where we build the housing in the slum. We integrate the people. We within, there is a mechanism, there is a formula to integrate, because when you work together with the private sector, definitely they want profit, but there will be also a cross-subsidy that we can do. But I think this needs a proper study. That's why after the post-COVID world, that we would like to see, but now during the 1.3 million US dollar that we put up, is not much, but we would like to get urban data, so that they have urban data evidence base. We do the mapping, and also we have the knowledge of so that to be informed decision making. And the long term, as I mentioned just now, the 4 areas that we are putting up, we are looking into the rethinking, the state reorganizing the local governance. This is the COVID-19, I think, given us a new outlook at how we can do the planning and how the local governance should function. So we have to think about the urban morphology. So I said that we need to think into an integrated and holistic manner. Over to you, Roman.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. If we may, we have the next question to you, or maybe one of other speakers, which we just received on social media from Algeria Youth Ambassadors. UN is dealing with this emergency situation across the globe during this pandemic. What approaches, prevention strategy the UN is following to keep refugees and stateless safe and far from COVID-19? So I guess this is more a question for Your Excellency, but if other speakers can add something from the youth point of view, let it be our last question to be answered, and some round of final comments then.
Yeah, for UN Habitat, I think when we talk about the refugee, this is under the UNHCR. But UN Habitat in the one UN under the Secretary General reform, we are also the member of the IASC, Interagency Standing Committee, which also put up the Global Humanitarian Response Plan, and aligned to the Secretary General Global Socio-Economic Response Plan, which is launched, I think you have seen it, we launched a few weeks ago. And last Monday, the Secretary General launched the Socio-Economic Response Plan, the action plan that we have to take up by the member state and also by all the UN agencies. As far as UN Habitats is concerned, we also have a program of water and sanitation, and also the providing the housing in areas which is in crisis, especially for example, in Kenya, is in Colombia, in Turkana, and we also have program in the area in Libya, in Yemen, in Syria. So there is at the moment now, there is a program under the Global Humanitarian Response Plan that is to be implemented by UN Habitat, UNDP, UNICEF, UNESCO, according to our mandate. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. So we know that we are running out of time, and thank you so much that you had this opportunity to stay with us for the whole call. Maybe you have a question to young people or to some of the speakers who gather here, because our plans are to help people to nominate and find those real working solutions and best practices from the ground, from the local level, to help bring them into the focus and agenda of the global actors such as UN Habitat, and this is why we are doing the Friends of Cities community. So maybe you have some question before we end our meeting.
Yeah, I have some suggestion.
Please.
Remember, I said that there are 3 focus that we are immediately want to see.
Yes.
One is how we can get the community-driven solution. I'm sure the youth have so many inventory, so many invention, innovation on the ground. Maybe you can help us. Second, how can you help us in collecting the data? In whatever project you are on the ground, collect the data. Because once we have the data, then we can know the impact. Yes, you have the project, what is the impact? If you have the good impact, maybe you can use that to scale up. Use the scale up your program. And the third that I would like to do is that, you know, the long term, the post-COVID that I'm talking just now, the 4 priority areas that we are like to do. How do you see your city? How do you want the city to function after COVID? There are things like not new normal now. What is the new normal that you would like to see in your city? How do you think that can address to reduce poverty, to reduce inequality? How can you see that the new planning now? For last time saying that density, more compact the better. But how do you think that is true, or is it because of it can be high density but not overcrowding? Then how can you help us to look into the new business model, the new normal? So help me. You have any ideas? Give me for the three focus and the 4 pillars that I mentioned just now.
Thank you so much.
I'm looking forward to your idea. Thank you.
Thank you for being that specific as always, and this is why we really love you, Your Excellency, and throughout all these years of our fruitful cooperation you always have shown a lot of attention to young people through all the initiatives you support. Thank you so much. For our audience, it's time now to say goodbye, and thank you so much for your presence and your attention. We were discussing with Her Excellency Maimouna Moghsharif, Executive Director of the UN Habitat and Under-Secretary General, as well as with the Under-Secretary General and Special Advisor on UN75 Fabrizio Hochschild, how cities can be more sustainable during the pandemic and after. We have listened to several of our speakers from the Friends of Cities community, and we hope that together with the all young people who watched us, we will gather the feedback, we will pack it, and we will present it to Your Excellency, to the UN75 office, with the proposals and specific measures and best practices which we can all together find, support, and what is really important, implement and bring into effect in those regions and those communities which they need most. Thank you so much. I would like to once again thank all the participants, fellow speakers, honorable guests from the United Nations for the eternal support. Thank you so much, dear audience, for your time. And of course, thanks TV BRICS for their amazing opportunity to connect us, and Roscongress Foundation also to put us all together. I would like to remind that we had some technical problems and maybe at some point the connection was lost, but as we have backup recording of all the speakers, a bit later we will publish the edited version of the whole call so that you can once again see it, and maybe it will be more clear in some moments. Thank you so much for your attention, and let's keep in touch for our future events, and stay in touch with Friends for Leadership. Join our website, submit your projects, friendsforleadership.org, or on our website, on our social media. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.